Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. In this video, I'm going to walk you through and talk about very important topics. Those are around BCP or BCPDR, right? So what is BCP and DR? It's a business continuity planning and disaster recovery, right? We all know that even if we are using cloud platforms as well as third-party SaaS providers and different platforms altogether, but still we need to make sure business is continually operational and there is a way for us to restore the systems and data back to the organization for operations or for the business to be operational again, right? And that is why BCPDR is going to be the topmost priority for many organizations, and that is already happening. But still, there are certain areas, those are something which might not be set up or set as expected. Because of those, organizations may struggle to restore the data, or they might struggle to lose data as well, right? So there are two factors, or I would say the two strategies and planning for BCPDR implementation across the organization, right? Whether we should look at the data to up restore and how much data we can lose, or is that expected at all, right? And what is going to be the timing that we wanted to expect that data to be restored within, right? So that is what I'm going to decode in this one, and those are the strategies, or those are the factors, I would say, those would help us to plan BCPDR effectively, right? So that's going to be something which very important across cloud as well as on-premises environment, right? And that's how it is going to be allowed us to make sure we are implementing right set of BCPDR planning and strategies, right? So let me walk you through the presentation, and that's going to be pretty straightforward and easy to understand it better way, right? So what is it? RPO and RTO in BCPDR, including cloud and on-premises. So essentially, it is going to be business continuity planning and disaster recovery for the business and for organization. Now, this is applicable to on-premises as well as cloud. And even if it is something we have hybrid environment as well, right? Now, there are scenarios like hybrid by default or multi-cloud, right? Even those are also the different strategies when companies and organizations are relying on different workloads and different business applications and systems altogether. But still, these are the areas where we should definitely look at and do the strategies and planning accordingly, right? So let's go ahead and decode these capacities or factors. So what is RPO and RTO, right? So RPO is a recovery point objective, and what this does, or how it works, or how this is going to help us to plan our BCPDR effectively, which is going to allow and focus on max acceptable data loss in time, right? So what does it mean is that how much data we can expect or we can afford to lose if in case something goes wrong, right? If there is a breach or if there is an attack across the system, then we wanted to restore that data as soon as possible. Still, we really expect some data to be lost? If no, then what are the other factors, or how we should be restoring and bringing that data back to the business, right? Because that's something we wanted to make sure system has, or the business has a data which is already backed up, right? And if we have that planning accordingly, definitely that's going to helping business to bring the data back, right? And that is why this factor or this strategy is going to definitely be great one to understand and plan it accordingly. So how much data we can afford to lose, even if if it is something, if the business goes into the situations where there's attack or breach or something like that, right? The second is RTO, which is a recovery time objective, right? What is the max acceptable downtime that we can expect for the business, basically, right? For example, in the same scenario, when there is attack or breach, right? Now, if we keep the business down for maybe 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 or 12 or 24, right? What would be the expected outcome? whether do we afford that, or can we simply just try to recover as soon as possible. And it totally depends on the business criticality, business needs, business requirements, right? Because there are different business operations which relies on different systems altogether. And if the primary system itself is down, for example, there is a financial system, right, which also does the payment systems and everything together across in-house and clients and customers and everything together. So can we afford that? No, right? Because also we wanted to make sure client's trust is built or client's trust is remaining as expected. And if the system itself is down, definitely there is no business at all, right? So in this case, in this factor, how much time we can accept the downtime? If it is few hours or maybe few days or weeks, right? Because depending on that, it is going to be something that we have to decide and plan it accordingly. Even it, even if it in the cloud, on premises, or any environment, right? So this is going to focus on time frame or time or timeline basically, and then we must do the BCP and DR planning appropriately, and then accept that risk, right? So risk is going to be accepted on both sides, whether it is RPO or RTO, both side, right? So the simple question would be how quickly must we recover, and the business should also be available for the whole organization and business to be operational, right? So that way it is going to be. So these are the two primary factors and the core capabilities of BCPDR that we must do the appropriate planning and take it ahead. Now let's look at the different approaches or different thoughts around it, how they do really work across cloud and on premises. What are the things it each has to do and how we should go ahead and do the planning and everything. So in the cloud, which is going to be real-time replication across on premises or within the cloud environment, and the automated failover if there are any, and along with elastic scaling, because cloud itself has a lot of underlying infrastructure setup, right? And it is going to be making sure it has a right set of integration that we are going to build. So it's going to be doing automatic scaling, failover, and replication real time. And the other hand, on premises, we would have to set up backupping, backup integrations, backup tools, then replications along with manual failover and restore capabilities as well. And there would also be hardware capacities because those would be limited when it comes to the on-premises data centers or capacity. And we need to make sure there is appropriate monitoring and logging systems are also implemented, because if there is a system which has hardware capacity limitation and the system is going to end its backup or all those kind of manual or all those kind of jobs, that means it is not backing up. And if there is a situation like this or kind of attack or breach, then we don't have that data backed up, right? And that is going to become a big disaster, right? So that is why there are pros and cons each of these scenario, but still we have a lot to do and do that planning accordingly. So impact of BCDR strategies, right? So you can simply understand if we don't have appropriate BCDR strategies, then how it is going to impact to the business from cost wise, risk wise, and overall business disaster, right? So RPO and RTO is going to define the resilience across the business and systems altogether. So let's understand a low RPO, which is going to frequent replication, which is going to be the higher cost when it comes to backing up data and making sure we wanted to bring that data back to the operations, right? Which is going to, of course, a recovery point objective. That means we are pulling out the data as soon as possible, right? And when it is a low RTO, which is a recovery time objective, which is going to hot standby automation and higher cost in this case. Why? Because whatever the data is backed up, that is continuously available 24/7, and that's on standby. For example, the primary is something down, then this standby node or standby operations is going to be operated and is going to be available for us, right? So that is why it has a higher cost as well. Now, the balance cost, including risk and business needs. So this is going to be the right strategy and approach too, right? It is not something we would simply go with the low RTO or RPO or low RTO, right? And the most organizations, they would choose the balancing between cost, risk, and business needs, right? Basis on that, they would end up implementing right set of BCDR strategies, right? And basis on that, it is going to be a kind of stronger BCDR, and then we would be able to make sure business has what it needs, including data and systems and uptimes and everything together to restore and be that available, right? So stronger BCPDR is of course going to be kind of, let's say, multi-regional or automation and disaster recovery deals, right? So all those capabilities would also be needed when it comes to restoring the data, restoring the systems altogether for the business to be available, right? So of course, depending on the strategies that we are going to build and implement. This is another one, which is why do we need RPO and RTO, right? Which is going to, of course, you can understand from these points mentioned here, which is going to protect the business continuity and revenue, because that's linked to the business and its continuity indirectly, you can say. And there would be direct and indirect integration or connection, because if we say there is a system called finance system that is for the business, right? And if that system itself is crashed or down, that means it is going to impact the business overall. But if it is there another system which is something which is not being used for the customers, or it is not something impacting the business at all, that's going to be indirect one, right? But in this case, we need to understand both sides, whether it is a direct impacting or indirect impacting. But in any way, it is going to business continuity issue or business continuity problem, and it's going to hit the revenue indirectly, right? Which is also going to ensure the finance or the compliances for finance, healthcare, and any other industries basically, and which is going to maintain the trust between customers and meet the business SLAs and needs as well. And the major part of this is going to be reduce downtime and avoid major data losses. So overall, we would need RPO and RTO to meet all of these requirements and capabilities for any business. There are some of the scenarios and situations where we can go ahead and implement it in a right way, including financial trading apps. RPO should be less than 5 seconds, including its recovery point time or point objectives, right? Because we wanted to bring that data back as soon as possible. Similarly, for different scenarios like e-commerce RTO, less than 15 minutes, ERP on-premises RPO 1 hour, RTO 8 hours, and SaaS-based applications RPO less than 15 minutes and RTO 1 hour, right? So these are the scenarios that we can put together and implement that strategy appropriately and deploy it across, right? Now, it totally depends on what type of workload it is, whether it is finance system or healthcare or HR or any other system, right? And basis on that, we can go ahead and implement that accordingly. When do we need RTO and RPO, right? So now you can understand this way. If there is a situation or event like natural calamity or cyber attacks or infra failure, right? So in any of those scenarios, it could be anything, right? We don't know, or whatever happens that may not be the planned at all, right? Kind of natural disaster, right? That happens because of natural situations that we cannot predict at all, right? Even it can happen during the planned maintenance or migration situations as well, right? It could also be a global operations where downtime, which was directly a revenue loss for the business itself, right? So these would be the different situations and scenarios we would need RPO and RTO to bring the back systems and data on time so that business is going to be operational at minimum period or minimum time. There are some of the benefits and risks as well, including With RTO, RPO defined that we can simply predict table recovery outcomes, alignment with the SLAs and compliance, right? Those would be the benefits. And without RPO, RTO, there would be some of the risks as well, right? Which is going to, of course, unclear expectations, what we are expecting on RTO and RPO, because until and unless we don't implement it appropriately, we don't have that expectation or clarity on it, with higher downtime and data loss, right? So it's going to be a data loss as well as downtime, and business is not going to come back to the operational as soon as possible. And risk of compliance failure. So that's also going to be the compliance failure for the business, and then that's going to hit the revenue as well, right? So that is why this is going to be something that is very important to do and plan it appropriately. Now, let's understand few of the requirements or different strategies or approaches how we should go ahead and implement BCP and DR with different ways or approach. Hot versus warm versus cold DR strategies, right? So including hot site where it's near to RPO, RTO, and it's going to be very expensive because as soon as first or anything that goes wrong into the another system or the primary system, then this hot site has all that data and everything available, which is of course a real-time sync between source to the target, and it is going to keep backing up data and systems, and it is easy to bring that operational system back to the business, right? And that is why it's going to be very expensive than other, right? And including warm site, we can say it's a moderate RPO and RTO, which is going to be, of course, a balanced one. Again, depends on the business needs and requirements, right? And if we wanted to only put this capability on critical workloads and other business systems are not really needed, definitely that can also be done and decide and implement that strategies, right? And then third one is cold site, which is higher RPO and RTO, but with the cheapest option. It is not going to cost a lot like balanced or expensive, right? So it totally depends on the choice or the business criticality, and also there would be another factor of budget, right? Whether business has appropriate budget and they are ready to invest that kind of investment for hot site or warm site, or they are simply looking for cold site requirement, right? Or cold disaster recovery implementation, right? So it depends on that, all of those criticality and all of those requirements, and they would simply go ahead and implement it, right? So these are those strategies which will also help on the deciding factor for the business to go ahead and make sure they are doing it appropriately. All right. So that is what I wanted to talk and walk you through around BCP and DR. And the most important part of this is RPO and RTO. So you need to understand that as well, right? Now, every backup solution which is available in the market today, they do provide different RPO and RTOs, including cloud platforms and also into the on-premises data centers that can also be calculated and understand what it needs for the business to be available on the data as well as on the time, right? So, yep, that is what I wanted to talk and walk you through about BCPDR strategies for RPO and RTO. And hope you learned something new. Let me know if you have any questions, any doubts, anything about this topic or anything or any other topics you might be looking for. And I'd be happy to answer and collaborate on it. And don't forget to like this video, share it to the friends, and subscribe to the channel as well. So, yep, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.